All right, so I want you to have watched the first video on section 1.5, which was the integer tribes. And it's kind of a funny way of looking at it, but we're just going to use that on these instead of the real directions in your book that are on page 37 and 38. If you look at negative 10 plus 5, I have 10 negatives and 5 positives. So I have more negatives by 5. And that's it. That's all we do. On this one, I showed you one like this. If we're adding an equal number of negatives and positives, then basically they kind of cancel each other out. We end up with a 0. All right, so now I have 18 negatives and 26 negatives, and that means they're having a party. They're all together. They're all negatives. So we simply combine them as a total, and we get negative 44. All right, so this one gets a little more complicated, huh? Negative 5/9 plus 1/3. Well, we have to have the same denominator before we can do this negative positive thing. So since 3 goes into 9, I'm going to have a common denominator of 9, and that means I multiply the numerator and the denominator by 3 and rewrite this. So negative 5/9 plus 3/9. And then I treat the numerators just like I have been. I have more negatives than positives. I have 2 more. So that's going to make this negative 2/9. Okay, what happens when you have more than 2? Well, I have 3 numbers here. So what I like to do is combine my negatives. Notice I have negative 14 and negative 3. So I'm going to make that a negative 17. And then I will add the 11. So once again, I have more negatives than positives. I have more because negative 17, right? So that makes negative 6 more. And that's it. Now you guys, you can use calculators on these things, but I would encourage you try to do this without using your calculator much to help you learn how to do simple numbers just in your head. All right, so now we have we have decimal numbers. Well, it works the same way. I have more positives because it's 11.4. So if I take 11.4 and 9.2, I end up with just 2.2. And this time it's positive, right? Whoops, sometimes my pen does that. And so that's it. Now you can use your calculator to help you on those kind of questions. All right, so now we've got a lot more going on. We have all these different combinations here. Notice we have brackets, so we have to work in the brackets first. In the first set of brackets, I have all negatives, negative 2 plus negative 7, so that's going to be a negative 9. Plus, in the other brackets, I have negative 11 plus 22, so I have more positives by 11. So this time the positives win by 2. All right, here's another one where we have some decimal numbers we're going to have to work with. So we're going to keep the negative 3.7. We're adding, and I'm going to keep this bracket for a moment. I'm going to add 8.1 to 0.1, and that gives me 8.2 plus negative 0.6. Still have a bracket here. And so I have to combine those. It's basically 8.2 and you're going to subtract the 0.6. And so in this case, that number is going to be a positive and it's 7.6. Now I have 7.6 and negative 3.7, so the positives win. Basically, I'm just subtracting the 3.7 at this point, and that leaves me with a positive 3.9. All right, so I'm going to stop right here on this video. I think that you've had quite a bit of practice with adding negatives and positives. Just try to think of it as simple as possible. Do I have more negatives or positives? Do I have all negatives and all positives? And so don't make this more complicated, and I hope this helps.